If you can't name the use case and the metric in one sentence, it's not a POC, it's a science project. Hello, and welcome to Generation AI, where we demystify artificial intelligence in the world of higher education and beyond. I'm your host, Ardis Kadiu, and as always, I have my co-host, Dr. JC Bonilla. Hey, JC.
Hello, everybody. It's great to be here as we continue our special three-part series on the AI Buyer's Book over the past two episodes, sandwiched with a beautiful deployment of everything that happened in the OpenAI conference. We have been talking about the journey of buying technology, assessing vendors, and now adoption of technology. So today we have a really, really special time where we're going to go even deeper than what we have before. Right, Ardis?
That's right. So we're talking about POCs today. So we're going to go from POC to action. And how do you make that AI stick? You know, too many AI pilots end up as theater. You know, the demos are wow, the dashboards really glow, and then nothing ships, right?
It's such a great analogy, by the way. And you know, the trailer to movie Disappointment is such a good analogy for AI, right?
Yeah,
the disconnect between trailer and movie.
Exactly. So how do you turn that POC, or how do you turn that pilot or that kicking the tires, so to speak, into production with clear metrics, fast feedback, and also the wins that you know your team and your leadership can see? And you know the quote, or something to kind of keep in memory here, is that based on the prior episode, if you can't name the use case and the metric in one sentence, it's not a POC, it's a science project. So we want to start with that, you know, premise. So if we can't name the use case and the metric in one sentence, it's not a POC. So today that's what we're going to do. We're going to focus on why POCs are important, you know, but just like we started episode 2, we want to define kind of what a POC is, and we want to go into kind of the definitions of that POC and start thinking about, you know, how do we think about it. So a proof of concept for an AI solution should, you know, there's a number of different things how we should think about it, but it should be narrow in scope, it should be time bound and focused on the kind of the clear business outcome. And the goal is to validate specific capabilities or use case with minimal investment, and not to build kind of full production systems. This is where a lot of folks kind of fall short on POCs. So a good POC targets a well-defined problem, like we talked about, so reduced response time in student support, or automating initial application review, and has measurable success criteria that have been established up front. And this is crucial, right? Because you should be reading intangible business value. So an example is, can AI answer 70% of the students' FAQ and save 20 hours of staff time per week? Like, that's very tangible, right? It's like, okay, you know how many students' questions come in. Can it answer 70% of those without handing them off? Rather than an open-ended tech exploration. So by keeping kind of the scope focused in a single workflow or kind of a few related tasks, you avoid the trap that a lot of POCs or trying to do everything in kind of this one pilot, so to speak. So successful POCs also run with very short time frames, about 4 to 6 weeks, and they have gated milestones and a firm end date. So this ensures that the project remains manageable. It doesn't overwhelm the vendor. It doesn't overwhelm there's not a lot of commitments on the other side. So it's supposed to be a very heavy lift, and it doesn't drift into kind of this pilot purgatory, again, where 88% of AI pilots, they languish without reaching a production, right? They basically are dead. So a strong POC finally kind of involves the right stakeholders, so both the business and the technical side, and from the start, and plans for how to succeed if results meet and agree the go no go criteria. So that's essentially the job of a pilot or a proof of concept, is a go no go criteria. That's your big milestone, and that's what you're trying to define, right? Does this thing is a go or no go?
One of the expansions I want to do here, right? It's a framing of go, no go, right? No go, basically failed pilots, It's not a defeat on technology, transformation, AI projects, whatever you want to call it. It's really important for you to understand that these metrics of a good POC for go, no go, it's literally what moves forward. Knowing that these metrics by design are pre-built to identify stuff that doesn't move forward. So if it doesn't move forward, you know what it is, Ardis? A celebration. Many of us launch these POCs and it didn't move forward. Why? Because it didn't pass the metrics. Fantastic, right? But this is the problem, that many of these POCs don't have the metrics, they move forward, and they're like, born, to like not succeed, not have impact, and it just basically wasted times. How many of these technology deployments are lingering and going nowhere? Go, no go, it's the right mindset. But as we succeed and celebrate a pilot moving forward, because it's going to be moved to a basically bigger project, more transformation, the stakes built, the ones that don't move forward, it's absolutely fine. In a way, it's a really important celebration. Does that track?
Yeah, exactly. And so let's we can certainly take a look at those key traits of a good AI POC. Should we just jump on that?
Let's do it, right? Because the concept is, all right, how do I know that this is designed for success, POC, or it's in success realm? In other words, what is the expression, hire fast, fire faster, right? Something like that. POCs have that also nature. What are the traits of success? Because some of them, you can pull the plug way earlier, right? So from the point of view of failing fast, so you can do the next POC and continue that evolution, these traits are super important.
Yeah. So before we go to the metrics, like let's summarize what you just said. So why most POCs fail, right? The POC often starts with tech first excitement, not the problem.
Mm-hmm.
Teams get distracted by what's possible instead of what's impactful. So it's like, they get excited and it's like, let's see if this is possible, but they forget about the impact. They pilot drift because there is no anchor metric. There's no timeline and no owner. So that's super important. And then, it's like the shiny demo does not equal operational change. So the value, it's like, how do you connect the value? So really ask yourselves, is like, can we name the user the AI is helping? Can we name the metric it's improving? And can we run this trial within 30 days? So those are three things that you should ask yourself as part of this. If you can't, just pause, because you're set up to fail. So let's go into like what are the right metrics? Think about the metrics for the POC, right? And how you should think about this. Well, we're going to talk about the traits, right? Let's think about the traits, most of the traits for a good POC, right? And we're going to think about, like, it needs to be narrow and specific in scope. So very narrow and specific in scope. So essentially target one workflow or use case, example, an admissions QA bot or an AI recruiting agent, but not multi-departmental. It's not a multi-departmental overhaul. So if you can't summarize the POC's purpose in a couple of sentences with the clear success metrics, it's too broad.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Of course, right? To specificity and going back to episode 1 and 2, the linking of this narrowness is a combination of, your use case, you understand the product category that you have, the lift that you need to do, and then all that's kind of common shapes it.
Yeah, exactly. So the second kind of really good trait, and one of the most important things, is kind of short and time box. So a good POC needs to be short and time box. So limit the POC to just a few weeks. Usually 4 to 6 weeks is common, with defined phases. So there's a setup phase, there's a development phase, a testing and evaluation phase, and a hard stop. So there's a hard stop, and this really creates urgency and prevents endless tinkering, because both sides are going to, there's going to be changes and you scope creep and all of that. So a good POC is short and time boxed. The next one, clear success metrics. And this is super, super important. Establish what metrics will prove the concept is viable. And this is the whole idea of running a POC, is so the concept is viable. right? And how you're going to determine that the concept is viable. This is not a, hey, we want to get a head start on our implementation, so let's just think about this as a POC, or so that is not a POC. A good POC, a proof of concept, is establishes and says we need to define the go, no go boundary, and you need a good metric to that both parties, the vendor and the institution and the company, are defining. So in this case, it's like you can say AI handles 70% of inquiries without human help, right? That can be a really good success metric. The average task completion time cut off by 50%. That's another good one. So write down this acceptable criteria before starting and avoid any scope creep. So there's a whole bunch of battle-tested examples in higher ed that you can kind of focus on. Think about time to value. So reduce response time to inquiries from 36 hours to under 1. So that's a time to value type of metric, right? And we're giving some more examples of those metrics. We figure that people, this is where a lot of things fall apart because they just don't know what that time of metric. Think about conversion lift. So this is a conversion lift metric. The number is this right now, and we're going to move it to this. Think about, and this is an example, can be move inquiries, just like we said. Move inquiry to application from 12% to 18% with an AI recruiter. So that's a very clear metric. Now, when we think about the time bound for that, it might be a little bit like you might need to leave enough room in there for that metric to move depending on how large that conversion timeline is. So think about that when you build these metrics. It's like if it's 6 weeks, then you need to make sure like, okay, we're at the right 6 weeks and we are improving it by this amount. Staff relief, right? So free up 10 to 20 hours per week per counselor via AI generated replies and summaries. This is another one that you can kind of come up, but it needs to be very kind of defined. It's like, okay, how do you do that? Like if the AI is handling 50% of, or is handling 5 conversations or replies per counselor, or is handling X amount or Y. Think about deflection. So deflection is another way as a metric. And then resolve, we talked about this, resolve 70% plus of tier 1 questions through an AI support agent. So this is an agent that you put on your website, that you put on maybe your student portal or your student hub, or you have a phone number that the agent works on, or you have an inbox that the agent is responding on. Throughput, this is another one. So have AI, an example can be have AI summarize, score, or triage 200 plus applications a day, right? So that's a throughput. It's like, I have like that's a metric on throughput. I need to do this much. And usually AI is really good at the volume. So that's where a lot of these POCs are like, well, I don't know if your AI can handle this volume or that volume. Can you handle 10,000 inquiries, or can you handle 10,000 outreaches a day, or so on? So think about, how you're evaluating that. And then the last one is kind of student success. So nudge students before they drop, but this is more like open-ended. So I wouldn't recommend thinking about that in terms of student success. You might want to think about a metric that you're trying to move around student success in there. So those are some of the things that I would focus on clear AI metrics. Does that make sense, JC?
100%. To build these attributes of great POCs with these metrics, first, to recap, we have narrow scope, second, time bound, and the aspect of time bound that I really like with the metrics, are you going to measure these things weekly? How often does it connect? And then how does that go into the scope on the teams that need to provide you with, these time bound aspects of the metrics? So how does it connect with the institutional partners and the goals and whatnot, right? And the last part, with just these 2 components, but there's more other components of what makes a great POC, is that it doesn't isolate AI into just one team succeeding or failing in that POC, right? In a time-bound environment. So a narrow scope, that doesn't mean that you're going solo, right? That the impact, it's cross-functional, and, it's a really important aspect. So those metrics expand the layer of cross-functional and how impact could be seen outside your team. What else makes a great POC, Ardis?
Yeah, think about the business value. Try the POC to the business outcome. Like we just mentioned a whole bunch of the things. So you have the success metric, but then the business outcome as well, right? So is it a cost saving? Is it faster responses like we talked about? Is it higher conversions? or better user experience. And technology for technology's sake is a red flag for sure. So something we're going to get into kind of what to watch out for and some of the red flags, but that's a really good one. Business value, focus, and then the minimal viable integration. So in the POC, don't over-engineer the POC. It should use just enough data and the system integration to provide the concept. Don't think about it as like, well, we need to integrate it with our SIS or whatever to do the POC. It's like, no, that's going to fail because you don't have the time to do that. Just think about like, the minimal amount of data that you need in there in order to prove this concept. And then you can start thinking about, okay, if he has more data and he has these things. And so focus on the feasibility first. If it succeeds, you can harden and scale it later.
It's so interesting how many of projects failed on the data complexity integration or orchestration, right? Whatever word you want to use. Let not that complexity of how the things interconnect be the failure of the POC, be the success, nor let that integration connectivity, it connects to the API, be the success. The business outcome, the problem you're trying to solve, aka the scope and the time bound aspect of it when it happens is the metric. It's how you think about success with the metrics, right? Cool.
Yeah, exactly. Like let's start talking about red flags, right? What to watch out for.
Ardis, before we go to red flags, can I just do a quick read and we can put this on our show notes. This is what the template for a project scope looks like internally. So a little bit of, how think about every AI project that we do has basically what is called the project scope or the business use case, what is missing, the problem. We think about the outcomes and the proposed solution, right? Then we have a whole statement on impact, right? And this is a really important thing. When this is solved, what is going to change? Then the second layer on this scope, right? The narrowness is, and we spoke about, the data layers and the data fabric and whatnot. So triggers and inputs, right? What is the system design? What are the system integrations that is needed, right? Minimum, right? And we actually have a visual of how these things interconnect. It's really, really important. We have a whole section on development, resources, level of effort, and the time aspect, the time-bound aspect of how this is going to look like. Last but not least, and this is probably where we're going to go into red flags, we have a whole section on deployment and optimization. Once this is done and is successful, right? What does it take to basically deploy it, right? And this is not technology. This is like people enablement, like training, how we're going to track it, where's the feedback going to come from, right? Because users and workflows start basically being acted on. And this is an important aspect of the template that we use. So happy to share it, but it goes on the narrow scopeness that you just mentioned, the metrics of success that you just mentioned, and also the time-bound components. Flags. When do we know this is not working and what things we should be looking out for?
Yeah. So we're going to, obviously we built this series for kind of build on top of the layers, and it's no surprise. It's like the vendor can't explain where the data lives or what permissions are required for this, right? So it's like the magic wand demos with no real integrations.
But Ardis, that's not a question. That's a statement. The vendor cannot explain where the data lives. That's you. You need to educate the vendor on where the data lives. And if you don't know, which is perfectly fine, that also requires another scope of work. Come tell me where the data lives, right? And it could happen, right?
It's the magic wand. Like, this is where we hear. It's like, does it integrate with this? Like, yes, it integrates with that. Yes, we're going to integrate with that. It's like, okay, that doesn't. So like the magic wand demos with no real integration. So this is kind of the red flags to watch out for. So if a vendor's demo or POC results seem like too good to be true, check out how it's done. So a classic red flag is like the wrapper trap, what we call the wrapper trap. So an AI that appears to answer your data-related questions, but isn't truly integrated with your system. So for example, if during the POC you realize that AI knowledge of the organization came from scraping your website or a one-time data dump, that's a concern, right? So it's like, sign include that AI is not being able to update anything in your systems or kind of needing manual CSV uploads. So there again, it kind of means that it's kind of an ongoing use that it's going to have stale data and limited functionality. So they can't provide a real data architecture or where the data lives and how it kind of connects to your systems. So that's something to look out for.
I was just going to go into the next one. A side effect of these red flags, right, when these integrations come in shaky, it's this AI produces hallucinations that are unverifiable with responses. These hallucinations without attributions of where they come from and things of that sort. That's usually what happens, right?
Right. Exactly. And one of the, like, a true integrated solution should articulate how it uses the APIs or database securely, or how it integrates with your systems, right? Without real integration, kind of expect this poor accuracy over time and the high maintenance. And this is where a lot of people fall short, and they have this wrapper problem, right? So the data quality issues when they fall for the wrapper approach. So the next thing is around data, AI output. You mentioned hallucinations, facts that and then attribution or rollback. So essentially, this kind of falls into the AI consistently hallucinates or gives incorrect information, and some mistakes are expected. Obviously, you can't give 100%, but if during evaluation you see a pattern or conflicting but wrong answers, that's a huge red flag. So especially in enterprise settings where the accuracy is very critical, like support answers and kind of data queries, like persistent hallucinations really indicate that the model or something is not kind of properly working as part of that. Like, think about a warning sign in here. It's like the AI answers complex fact questions without referencing any sources or context from your data. So, we see a lot where there's a proof of concept and the models instinctively know about institution X or Y, but then when you ask it, it's like, okay, go a little bit deeper. There's like, it just can't reference like where it found that information in your knowledge or your data or whatever. So that's a big red flag in here to look out for. The next one is kind of no logs, no transparency preview, and there's no evals. So this is probably one of the big things that we should call out. So no logs, meaning that you can't see what the reasoning of the model is, and you can't see the conversations, you can't see the evaluations, what's happening behind the scenes. So there's no logs, there's no transparency preview. So, like, for example, for our generative search on our website, there's we actually keep track of all the anonymous conversations back and forth, all the questions. So we bubble that up instinctively to the user so they can see what kind of questions are being answered and so on and so forth. For an application review or document review, we give the whole LLM reasoning of what's happening, why, and so on and so forth. It's all logged. And then the last part on here, it's about the approvals. So for our proactive agents, we give the reasoning of why it actually did something, but also there's a human in the loop component. So there's these approval processes that those communications are there. So those are red flags, right? If you're trusting the AI to do all those things, you need a human in the loop. You need to make sure you see the logs. You need to see what the AI is doing, the transparency that's happening there. And you also need to kind of have the approvals. So no approvals, that's usually a red flag around that.
Let me elaborate on the logs and transcript review, knowing that a lot of the POCs that are being launched are at the intersect between new features, technology, AI being introduced on campus, excitement, versus the fear, the lack of understanding what AI does, and campus presidents, deans, leaders, just basically being a skeptic about AI. These logs and transcripts are not only so important that its validity and existence, it's probably the unlock to trust. See, it did 17 things wrong, and this is how we fix them. And then the next 10 now have been fixed upon, right? These logs and transcripts are unlocks for potential adoptions and trust building, which then links to approvals. Hey, it's making these things and we don't like it. So you'll create a human approval, human in the loop is thrown to make sure that these things don't happen again without supervision, or removes approvals. Now we can trust it, so we don't need the human loop. So it's a beautiful interplay.
Exactly. So the warning sign is like if a vendor says, "Hey, trust the AI, it won't make mistakes." It's like it doesn't offer like a review, features in there that's native. It's a problem. It's a problem. Yeah.
You're not set up for success. Yeah.
Correct. So an enterprise AI should augment, not run wild like without oversight. So you need that human in the loop part in there. So when you start thinking about inability to handle kind of these edge cases or variations, that's another red flag. So during testing, you likely try some edge cases or less common phrasings or other things like that. So if the AI completely kind of fails on that, it should be concerning. Like if you can deviate from the happy path. So sometimes, in the demo, we showcase the happy path, but in a POC, like those are red flags to watch out for, that there's a it can handle edge cases, and because real test users will basically provide all of the different edge cases or all the different use cases that you probably are not thinking about.
Though I would say when you think about this as a red flag, my advice for POCs is don't build them on edge cases. Build them on the majority of the use cases
Build
that
on
you
happy
have.
path, but it's a red flag when you
That's the point, right? Because it is so not your POC center there, but having the path forward for edge cases, understanding how it's going to apply, it's vital.
So another red flag is around, think about like the ability to write back to your system of record, or if it is the system of record, that's a huge red flag. It's like you need to see that right away. So that's a red flag. It's like if it's a hand wavy, it's like, well, we can integrate with whatever. That's a red flag. And then there is no clear cost unit or ability to scale. So meaning, okay, it's like, how much is this thing going to cost us? Or like, how is it going to scale? Is there a clear indication of how this thing is going to scale to? Because a lot of students, like a lot of schools, they're like, okay, we have 50,000 students. Is this thing going to scale to 50,000, outbound active agents? And what is the cost of that going to be? And how does that work? So that's a really interesting one.
Those two artists, writing back to a system of record, the cost of scalability, are fundamental on our third category of AI products, right? When you go agentic and you allow AI workflows to exist, so if you get an AI and that's your use case, I want it to do workflows, and if it doesn't know how to write on your system, it doesn't have a system of scalability, friends, it doesn't do it. Let me put it this way. The AI doesn't do that. And this is some of the clarity that we want to bring here, right? For you to be operating in this very high impact ROI agentic promise, it requires these two: the ability to write back on the system, and as a mechanism for you to understand the cost unit for scalability, right? It will be hard to say you'll pay the same $1 for one student than 1,000 students. It just doesn't make sense.
Yeah, and that's usually like if we move into kind of the smell test, like the quick smell test, so to speak.
Artis, before you do a small, can you just spend 30 seconds from your point of view on this cost and scale, this whole credit system? The unit of scale today is credit system. So how there are red flags? They tell me, sure, scale, but it's a credit system. I'm going to have this. I pay the same, but what I have is some type of AI credit bank. Could you just 30 seconds on what that looks like and how does it become a red flag?
Yeah, so the way it becomes a red flag is, when you're buying a product and it says, okay, like we're going to charge you $50,000 a year or whatever, like starting at 1,000 students for inquiries or doing outbound or outreach, or 5,000 students. And then it's like, oh, okay, so where's the pricing for 10,000, 50,000, so on and so forth. So like that becomes an issue for a lot of the scaling, because if AI is successful, you want to increase the cost to tremendous. So you want something that can give you that predictability in there, but also if it becomes successful, it's not going to cost you multiple times what your system of record is actually costing, or your CRM, or you know what I mean. So it can get pretty expensive pretty quickly if you go with kind of the proof of concept that says for 1,000 students it's going to be X amount, or 50,000 or $100,000 a year, but then you're going to want to use it more and more and more, and it just fails. So right now the pricing around AI, how do you price AI products, is super important, and there's just a lot of pricing inflation that's happening there. So you just gotta be careful around that.
Yes, lovely. All right, let's go into this quick smell test. And the reason why I like this framing, this is literally the 60-second, there's something that doesn't track here, right? Like, quick and dirty, I can move forward, or I should just basically stop or ask differently. So what are the ask the vendor yourself quick smell test, Ardis?
Yeah. So the first thing is like, show me a write back to the CRM right now. So it's like, show me a write back to the CRM, show me a write back to the SIS, show me a write back, or like pulling data from there. Show me how you do your knowledge base. So this is where systems that are standalone have an advantage, because the system of record is all the context and the data of the user and all that stuff is all self-contained, so it's all integrated into one place. But if it's a wraparound, or if it's a kind of point solution, right? That's what we're talking about. It will need to do that. So that's a really quick quick smell test there. So how do you connect to your data? Can you show me kind of the AI updating a record in real time? Or a strong solution will have that. For example, it'll have authenticated APIs. It will have a way for you to see where the data is, and you have to you have to see that. So if the answer is, well, we scrape your website and we upload spreadsheets for anything else, it's like, well, that's a bad smell test, right? It's like, so think about that. Another one, what happens when the AI doesn't know what to answer? This is the ask it something it shouldn't know test, right? So during a demo or a trial, ask the AI questions that it could only answer correctly. But if it truly has access to your internal knowledge, for instance, like something's very specific, like according to blah, 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 this handbook, what is the prerequisite for biology 101? If the AI correctly answers that with that internal detail, it suggests that it ingested your content, which is really good, if that was kind of the intended consequence there. But if it gives like a generic or wrong answer, maybe the knowledge wasn't integrated correctly. There's like a lot of issues that are happening around your RAG system or how that's working. So it goes back to hallucinations. So, and then when you ask the AI to answer something that it shouldn't know, or that is not part of it, it should basically say, I don't know. And it should naturally have those guardrails around your knowledge. So that's a smell test. Because if it's giving you answers for everything, that's usually not answers that don't pertain to your institution. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
And I just leave you with this, right? As you go through the smell test, pass, right? Okay, you get an answer and you understand it. Proceed. It doesn't pass, like, oh, they don't do it. Literally what we're saying is walk away, right? Because the way this is going to compound is that your POC fails. So these smell tests not only are optional, but it's in a way the codependencies that you have for POC success, aka AI adoption and transformation.
Yeah, exactly. So a couple more really quickly in here, and then we'll kind of move on. But think about the permission check. So if possible, use a test account with limited permissions and ask certain questions, or maybe anonymous permissions. So a lot of these AI systems, they know about the user. So we're basically trying to identify if the answers are going to be the same for people who they know information about versus like anonymous users. So that's a smell test there. Because the permissions system is really, really important with this. AI is not having access to the data as well. So it's like, how do you do the permissions is super, super important. We do have a lot of other smell tests here. It's like there's so many of them. Obviously, we can talk about things like we can talk about the stability under rapid fire. So type a few questions quickly or interrupt it in mid response. Does it get confused or crash? Like there's the transparency. What do you do when you don't know an answer, right? That's what we talked about before. And then the deployment scalability check. Ask what's required to deploy this to like we talked about, to 1,000 users or students, any limitations we should know about. So there should be very clear answers around that, like around scaling, latency, etc. If it's kind of a hand wavy or they never have tested it beyond like small loads, that's a big issue. And that's what we're seeing with a lot of these solutions, because they come on the market really, really quickly, and they haven't really worked with really large schools, 50,000, 100,000, 200,000. They don't have records that some schools, for example, in Element have, millions of records because they've been working on the system for a long time. Does it handle that kind of volume? So those are the things that they should, think about as well. All right, JC, should we kind of go into wrap up mode here?
Let's do it. By the way, as we think of wrap up, I think that'll be a super fun episode where we just expand the smell tests and actually make it one of our work sessions. So maybe in the future we can do this is how you do the interruption. This is how you do these kind of credentialing and things of that sort.
So how about we do a cheat sheet? So just wrapping this whole thing around. So the cheat sheet. So good POC in 10 seconds. Narrow scope, time boxed, less than 6 weeks. Pick one KPI, one owner, have real data with minimal privileges, right? And then focus on S1 to S2 gated content, and then ship a readout. So think about the gates. So that's the good POC in 10 seconds.
Good to you only have to come and listen to us in this past 10 seconds, and you got 3 episodes
exactly.
in one. Ardis, where S1 and S2 refers to the. Can you expand on S1 and S2? We're talking about the transition of assistants to copilots, where S3 it's full autonomy.
Right. Exactly. So table stakes by use case, like basically what must exist. You need to have support 24/7. So multi-channel chat, knowledge-based grounding. It needs to, if you think about for support 24/7 use case, right? It needs to have a multi-channel chat, knowledge-based grounding, user lookups, human handoff, logs. So that's that use case. If you're thinking about an AI recruiter or nurture POC or use case, think about CRM integration or part of the CRM, like Element agents, which is amazing. Multi-touch sequences, personalization, write backs. So those are some of the things to keep in mind. Those are table stakes, right? If you're doing app processing or application management, think about app reader or fraud checks, table stakes, rubric alignment or audit trails, counselor approvals. So again, table stakes. Think about in the student success. You need to have signals from the LMS and the SIS, proactive nudges. So the ability to proactively, nudge and sensitive topic guardrails. Think about, how do you set those guardrails? Those are table stakes, and then escalations as well. So very quickly, the table stakes for by use case in those 4 different categories, like support 24/7, AI recruit and nurture, app processing. Of course, we have other use cases that we can talk about, but we'll try to do a couple of blog posts on the Element website and kind of, putting this together.
And can I do really quickly table stakes, but on performance? Make sure that you're looking out for these 4. Speed, reply in seconds. When the flights are reviewed, then maybe minutes. This is not hours, obviously not days. Scale is important. It has to be correlated with the quality of the drop, right? So in other words, concurrency without quality drop is not scalable. Quality, fewer errors, usually higher satisfaction. Performance is seen that way, right? And last but not least, when you think about the impact, you're looking at metrics, you're looking at conversions you're looking at transformations that look like this. Your conversion increases, your deflection increases, your staff time increases. In other words, there's free time. Those are things on performance and impact that can help you significantly.
Yep, exactly. All right, so I think we kind of did it. I think we wrapped it up.
I'm kind of sad. We finished 3 episodes, so this is it.
Yeah.
Our series is done. I hope everybody you've enjoyed our contribution here. We're trying to solve a problem that it's very seasonal today. A lot of information, a lot of potential, a lot of noise in this AI space. So follow these 3 series where we take you into what is the framework for buying? How should I look at vendors and how should I score them to make decisions in a more objective way? Mm-hmm. But then knowing where we are today, POC is king. How do you make POCs stable, successful? And in a way, what are the watch outs, the things that you should be looking out for to make this POC fail and kind of go at it? So,
yeah. Core takeaways for me: start where your data lives, climb the autonomy ladder gradually, anchor everything in use cases, playbooks, and checkpoints, and then focus on measurable incremental wins that can compound into intelligence. So I feel that's kind of how we have to end this. So till next time, everybody. Generation AI is part of the Enrollify podcast network. If you like this podcast, chances are you're going to like other Enrollify shows too. Our podcast network is growing weekly, and we've got a wide range of marketing, enrollment, and higher ed technology shows that are jam-packed with stories, ideas, and frameworks, all designed to empower you to be a better higher ed professional. Our shows help higher ed leaders and professionals like you find their next big idea. They feature a selection of the industry's best as your hosts, like Jamie Hunt, Seth Odell, Jenny Lee Fowler, Brian Gross, and many of your favorite leaders in higher ed. Enrollify is made possible by Element 451, the next generation AI student engagement platform that's helping institutions all over the country create meaningful, personalized, and engaging connections with their prospects and students. Learn more at element451.com.